I was going to say, how's your week been? But I think you've had a bit of a crazy year, haven't you, to be honest with you, in wrestling?
Yeah, it's been wild.
I mean, big show after big show after big show. I mean, how would you sum it up overall?
Um, what my life? It just seems to be big show after big show. It's crazy. And I'm very lucky to do what I do, especially on with Rev Pro. That once one thing is done, we're on to the next thing. There is kind of no rest period. It's constantly go. So yeah, no, I have a lot of fun. Have a lot of fun doing that, even though it's very hard to keep up sometimes.
There's a lot of traveling as well, because obviously, like, 1 minute you're in Coventry, then you're in Southampton. You're absolutely everywhere, right?
Yeah. The hardest weekends that we usually do is the Stevenage Sheffield weekends, because just where they are in the country and where I live, I'm still commuting to and back home between each show. So I go and do Stevenage, which tends to be an evening show, and then after that come back to Gloucester, and then the next day going up to Sheffield and doing that. So yeah, I cover a lot of miles, but it's a lot of people often say to me, they're like, "Oh, you get to see a lot of the country." I'm like, "I get to see a lot of service stations, yeah, along the motorways." But yeah, it's great being able to experience wrestling with different fans in different areas, because there is a slight difference in that, and it's nice to be a part of that no matter where we are in the country.
Absolutely. So we're talking, of course, to Francesca. We've got loads of stuff to talk about. Let's roll the intro. Now, of course, we're on Thursday. How's the week been?
Yeah, not too bad. Had a nice little rest after the trios tournament in Coventry this weekend. That was a busy weekend. But nice because it's actually one of the closest venues to me. So even though I was doing the commute, Saturday night I was home by 10:30. So that was beautiful. Ready to go again the next day. But yeah, just had a nice chilled week so far.
I'm still laughing
You?
at the thing. I've actually had a busy week at work, but I'm still laughing at the comment you said, like, service stations.
So I do. You can't beat. Depends how you pronounce it. We call it Beaconsfield, but I think it's Beaconsfield. Absolute best service station you can get. You've got everything you need, including a Weatherspoons, is at Beaconsfield.
There we go. There we go. So, obviously, we all the traveling and stuff like that. Do you get much time, obviously, to yourself?
Weekends. It depends really. Depends where the shows are, or how many shows I've got. Um, so yeah, at the moment I've taken a step back from the work that I was doing during the week. So it's giving me a few more rest days, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
Which is nice because yeah, my weekends are full. Like Rev Pro run 40 to 50 shows a year, and obviously it's on weekends, so you can tell by that how many weekends I actually do get off per year.
Not many.
No.
So obviously, let's start at the beginning, shall we? How does it obviously begin? You obviously being a ring announcer.
So I've always done performing all of my life. Like I did like dance and drama growing up. I went to college, did performing arts. I then went on, worked at holiday camps, done a bit of stage, did a bit of radio. And it was only in 2017 I kind of found my way back watching wrestling. And at that point, I was like, well, I'm a performer, really like watching wrestling. I feel like these two things could go together. So got in contact with a local promotion, started networking there because unfortunately that promotion ended up being their last show, which was my first show that I actually went to with them. But because I networked, I then got to know people at another promotion. They were looking for somebody to stand in. So I was just like, oh, I think I can do that. Because originally I was kind of going more along the backstage interview role. But they needed an announcer. And I was like, oh, I think I might be able to do that. And I did. And then after the first show, they were like, we want you for every show. And that was it. So that was back in 2017. I think my first show was either in the February. It was early in the year, 2017, and that was with Pro Evo, or Evolution Wrestling, as they're called. Now I know where JJ Gale, who was on a couple of weeks ago, mentioned, because that's where he started too. Because on my first show, I actually ended up having to sing "Happy Birthday" to JJ Gale. So what a way to enter the wrestling world.
And what was that like, obviously, that first show for you? Because obviously it's first time, obviously, ringing out and stuff like that. Were you nervous and stuff like that?
Yeah, I was, because at the time I was only watching predominantly WWE. So it was kind of trying to focus on their style, kind of what they were doing. Like dress wise, I was like very conservative, like just a basic blue kind of tabardie type dress, because I'm like wanting that kind of authority slight look and not really sure where I fit in. So yeah, my first show, as much as I'm used to being in front of people with a microphone and presenting, it's a whole different ball game. But yeah, it's been great ever since.
There you go. So how does it obviously end up with you being at Rev Pro? Because obviously a lot of people said Rev Pro, obviously Progress is your main two shows for the UK.
Yeah, so we were coming out of the pandemic. I, at the time, was actually questioning myself, because I was predominantly only doing the local shows in the Southwest. And I'm like, coming out of the pandemic, and I'm like, do I need to go back and do that? Because it is time consuming of your weekends, and being on my own a lot in lockdown, I'd had the thoughts of, well, do I want to keep on doing this? And then suddenly I just got a message from Andy saying they were running a show in Bristol. Would I be available? And I was like, oh, I can't turn down Rev Pro, can I? And
No.
yeah, went and did that. And then Andy was like, I want you for every show. And then suddenly I was like, actually, I think it was after the second or third show, and I just remember sitting in the car with Brendan White. I don't know if I said anything to him at the time. I feel like Josh Holley was there as well, but it was kind of the things that they said about opportunities, and I just sat there thinking to myself, I'm like, this could actually happen. I like this, as much as it would be a dream, I could actually live out this dream. So that's how I ended up at Rev Pro, and because of Andy, I've gone on to do other things and work with some incredible people. So
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. So for people obviously listening, give them insight what obviously goes into ring announcing, obviously what goes up behind the scenes, because I imagine you've got to keep your throat nice and thinking, because you're obviously constantly talking.
Yeah. So vocal warm-ups are essential. There is often times though where I'm going around, because you've got to obviously get everybody's introductions as well. Different companies work in different ways. I was out in Italy recently, and the production then got everybody's information for me. In the UK, I tend to have to go around every person. But like doing that and then getting ready, I then sometimes find myself 5 minutes before the show, I've done the 10-minute call, I'm like, oh, vocal warm-ups. Definitely need to start doing vocal warm-ups. And I don't do them as long as I should. But we're working on that. Trying to get a bit more focused and organized, ready to deliver as I should. But yeah, I like a vocal warm-up. I just sometimes don't have time, but it's all right, because the style of announcing that I do, after I'm sure probably people on the app have noticed. I'll start the show and I probably sound a little bit like I am now. There'll be a bit of a croak in my voice. By the second match, it's fine, because that was my vocal warm-up if I didn't get it. So yeah, I find it interesting because a lot of people say about my voice, and I get compliments all the time, and like, how do you do this? And I'm like, I don't know, I just literally I opened my mouth one day and out it came.
Yeah, I mean, I've obviously been at Rev Pro, obviously in Sheffield and stuff, so I've heard you ringing house and stuff like that. Talk a little bit about obviously your style of ringing house, because to me, it's very unique.
Yes, a lot of people say it's unique. I don't know, like, because I don't have a lot of video footage going back with Evo and things like that. A lot of time, even though I get the same feedback, I'm intrigued myself to see how my style has developed. I know when going into Rev Pro, as far as the what I was to say, it was kind of me just feeling out my own kind of rhythm and what worked best for me. And like, one of the things that I literally adore, and some wrestling fans don't like it, some promoters don't like it, but I love when I say one fall and for the whole crowd to just shout it back at me. So the way I've kind of, the rhythm for me as yeah, worked out for the best kind of response. Because I remember the day, I'm sure Andy remembers the day as well, when he introduced time calls. Because when I first started Rev Pro, we weren't doing time calls. And then he introduced time calls, and I got a little bit confused because I was only told this through an earpiece through the ref, and I was a bit confused. But we finally got on the same page. And then it was like, well, trying to find the rhythm of where that sits in perfectly. So yeah. And then as far as what I do with my voice as well, like, everyone will say it's very powerful, because a lot of people are like, with a voice like that, surely you can sing. And I'm like, in the shower, I can hold a tune. I'm sure if I tried, I've never been an actual singer. I'm sure if I tried, then I can hold a tune or two. And thank you, Brandy, once again for making me sing in the ring at Rev Pro at 229 many years ago. Oh, Francesca's got a lovely voice. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, Andy. Thanks, great. But yeah,
Was you
I think
nervous with that?
singing in front of, yeah, because it was the night after Clash of the Castle where Tyson Fury got in the ring and sang American Pie. And then, so this was Andy setting me up to do the same thing the next night. And I'm like, ah. And then the more of the panic was, I can't remember the verse to American Pie. So I just broke into the chorus instead. But it seemed to go down well. Probably not my karaoke tune if I had to choose. But yeah, probably more nervous singing in the ring than I am doing my announcing anyway.
This is brilliant. So obviously this year's obviously the 4 big shows, obviously what Rev Pro's gone through this year. And I want to start with this one actually, because I remember you putting on Twitter that you obviously got to do the ring announcing for this. What was that like, and how did it all come about?
Oh, I don't think I'm over it yet. Yeah, so I was first approached back in like June, I think it was. I remember being in Stevenage and asking, and I'm like, if that's an option, then yeah. It's New Japan. Like, no, I now am the first and only female announcer on New Japan. So it was a massive privilege to not only just announce, but to have a history making moment like that. But yeah, and I just kept it to myself. And it got to the point like 2 weeks before, I was like, it's probably time to say something. So yeah, I was like, do you know what? I was at the 229. I was like, it's 2 weeks away. We're in London. The show's going to be in London. I'm not going to hijack the show at all. But my bit in between, so at the end of the first half, when I'm like, shoprevpro.com and all this, go and see this, go and buy that. I was like, I'm going to actually announce I'm the announcer for Raw Quest 4. So, and then once I did that, I put it online and I got a lot of nice feedback. So my dog's just seen something out the window. Sorry. I'm like preparing for him to bark. Alfie. See, there we go.
There we go. Don't worry about it.
Get down. People are allowed to walk. Sorry.
We're 15 minutes in, we're getting hijacked by a dog.
Yeah, wow, this is my life. It's completely been hijacked by a dog.
Dear. I was looking at that actual card from Royal Quest as well, and there was some really good talent on that card, let's be honest.
Yeah, incredible. And having the opportunity to announce some incredible wrestlers that I never thought I would obviously even get the opportunity to do New Japan, so let alone all the wrestlers that I did. And then of course with the main event with ZSJ and Sonada, and that being the first title defense. Yeah, it was a great show. Like, to be honest, even though I was by the ring the whole time, my mind was not there. My mind was like, what's coming up next? What have I got to do? How do I pronounce this? Am I doing this right? Which corner are they coming out on? Like, yeah, like they're fighting. It's the red corner. And it's, so it would, how I got through that show, I do not know, but I did. And I'm very grateful for it.
Of course. It's a great show. Next one, obviously, we're going to talk about is, it's always a special on the anniversary shows. I remember speaking to Nightshade, and she nearly said copper pot.
Copper pot. Well, technically, from far away, it does look, or used to, but yeah. No, yeah, the copper box. Yeah, what venue? I've done that two years in a row now, and over 4,000 people. And do you know what the strangest thing is? I find it a bit easier going out in front of 4,000 people than in a room with maybe over like under 100. It's very strange. Or much I love both environments. You would think I would be, well, yeah, I was. I'm scared. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. But once I'm out there, it just feels normal. Like I should be here, and that's why I love the copper box. And actually, one of the best things about the copper box, because of in the last 2 years, it's been the night before AEW. You've got fans that have come from all over the world, and you've got people watching all over the world, and it's an experience in itself. And just the show, wow, so many great matches, and as much as it, like most time it begrudges me to say about the Cutthroat Collective, my goodness, that match. I saw a slow-mo of when Rio goes into the table with the tacks, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But wow, yeah, that was probably one of the most iconic moments of the night.
Absolutely. And of course, the next one is, and this was recently in the Doncaster Dome, Global Wars with two people I really respect in wrestling, Zack Sabre Jr. and Robbie X. Overall, the card was great, but them two put on an absolute classic, let's be honest.
Yeah, one of my favorite matches of the night. And actually, just going back to the copper box, because you mentioned Zack Sabre Jr., I have that moment is one of the probably peak moments of my career, announcing ZSJ as the first British G1 Climax winner. And it was just, the whole place erupted. Not once in my career have I ever been confronted with such a big pop. And there was just a moment where me and Zach just looked at each other and kind of did that nod of like, yeah. And then just went straight back into it. Sorry, I had to mention that moment because it literally peaked my career. It will be one of my most favorite moments. But yeah, Global Wars. Doncaster Dome. Yeah, that's a great venue as well. Like, and the crowd were great. All the matches were incredible. I forgot to do my hair though. That's unfortunately something that stuck with me. I look at some of the photos and go, oh yeah, I remember going to do my hair, and then I didn't. But I can't not talk about Global Wars and not mention the return of Yota Tsuji, because he wasn't even meant to be there. It was just an unfortunately Leo Rush, and with delayed flights and things, and just not being able to get to the venue on time, and then his music and his graphic drops, and it's Tsuji, and the crowd goes freaking wild. It was amazing. And then he got me up in the ring doing his hand, and wasn't too impressed with my my pronunciation of Los Ingobernables. See, this is why he wasn't impressed. Right, Los Ingobernables de Japan. There we go. If I do it slowly, I can do it. By the next day, I was okay. But yeah, if you watch Global Wars, you'll see Tsuji's face a bit about. I'm like, I'm trying. But thankfully, he helps. He's very helpful. He tried to get me to pronounce it right. One day.
Before I obviously talk about the recent show, I'm going to speak about pronunciations. Do you get a lot of stick, obviously, where you obviously announce stuff?
Oh, yeah. So this weekend, just gone, I had Herodoma, which was Portugal. Then there was the team from Spain as well, and there was lots of other guys. But yeah, it's something that I've had to learn recently, being an announcer, of all the different pronunciations from. Yeah, well, I recently did a show in Italy, and so that was another it's just so many different ones, and I try, and thankfully the wrestlers understand that I am trying. But yeah, it doesn't always come off as accurate as I would like. But yeah, it complicates things, but it's fun. It's nice to be different. Like, especially with like the CMLL guys that come over. So then there's Mexican like pronunciations, and yeah, it definitely broadens my skills.
Would you say it's testing?
Sometimes. Sometimes, especially if because I recite everything that I do. It's very, very rarely that I read anything. In fact, the only thing in recent times that I have was with David Francisco in Southampton, because he had a list of things for me to say, and he was like, write it down. So I did. I did. There could have been a moment this weekend just gone with Spectral Envoy, because I had a lot to recite, and I only get this information like 10 minutes, 20 minutes before the show. And this is what it tested me, but I felt so satisfied after, because I pulled it off. But the crazy thing was, because of course these are three guys I've never worked with before, so I had to learn all of it. But their match actually last minute got moved up. So if I hadn't drummed it into my brain, say, I think it was like match 2, then, because at this point they were match 4, and literally they changed to match 3. So yeah, I wrote it down and I tucked it in my skirt, just in case that I got in the ring and went, no, it's gone. But I pulled it off. It was fine. It's that's another side of announcing as well, is reciting everything, because there is plenty of times that the most experienced and professional wrestlers, or even actors, will let you know. Sometimes you just get up there and your brain just goes, yeah, bye-bye. So graphics help a lot sometimes, especially because Andy does like a Revolution like tag, which often has multiple people in there. So a lot of the time I've got eight names, 8 monikers, like taglines, sometimes places, and then I've got championships as well, all in my brain, and I don't know which order they're coming out. So I'm literally there just waiting, going, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? But it's, yeah, it's fun. It's lots of fun.
Would you say that's the hardest part, though, trying to remember all the introductions and stuff?
Yeah. I have one. I do, touch wood. I do have a decent memory. So, which can annoy people at times because I'm like, do you remember what you did on this date on that year? No. I remember my childhood and everything. But yeah, it definitely makes it a bit more complicated, especially if there is quite a lot to say, or there's a lot of members or a lot of people in the match. Which is often with RevPro, because back in the day, I used to do weights and places and everything they wanted, I would do. And then getting to RevPro, it was kind of like, it's more pressure now, and I'm not allowed to have anything to read, even though I didn't read before. But there was a lot more pressure, and I do suffer from self-doubt a lot, and sometimes like imposter syndrome. And I know I'm capable of doing these things, but it kind of was like, well, if I minimize what I'm doing, then there's less to get wrong. But with RevPro, it kind of, certain things serve a certain purpose. So I still do places if you're international, because then, you know, you've come from somewhere. So I'm going to say where from, like, a lot of people on RevPro are obviously from the UK. So unless it's something to do with the gimmick, like if there's a reason why you need me to say that you're from this place, then I will say you are from this place. It's not an issue. The weight thing, same again. If it plays into the wrestlers' like entrance, then yes, then I will do that. But yeah, when it comes to RevPro, sometimes, especially as we're streamed live around the world, we have massive audiences. Yeah, sometimes I find it a bit easier to keep it simpler, just because it's all coming from up here, and I don't trust what comes out of there, so nobody else should. No, I'm good.
Like, so
literally, I do. Sorry, it's bad, really. Like when I'm going around and speaking to all the wrestlers, and I'm getting their intros, and they'll sell that, and I'm like, okay, we'll see what comes out. Bye. Because it's like that. Maybe that's a bit of insecurity on my part, because I'm like, I'm trying my best, but sometimes, yeah, things happen. So yeah, like on Sunday. Sorry, I talk a lot. Sorry.
Carry on.
There's times I'll be around people, I don't say 2 words, and then sometimes you just get me on camera. I'm like, right, here's my whole life story. But yeah, my fans who were in Coventry and watched it would have seen on Sunday how I was explaining about the coin toss before the tournament matches to determine whether it was traditional rules or lucha rules, and it just came out coin toss, and like I said it, and like I was like, and then the crowd was like, coin toss, and I was like, yeah, coin. I'm like even trying to just say coin toss is not a natural kind of thing to say, but it just happens sometimes. It's like, you know, they say it like live TV. don't work with children or animals. It's things do happen when like shows are live. It just is what it is.
I can just imagine the crowd reaction going, "What did she say?"
Literally. I love the repro crowd though. They're so kind to me. And they take it as it is. And thankfully I can just take it for what it is. There's certain shows that I am very, very critical of my performance. And then there are sometimes I do things like that and I just have to laugh a bit because I'm like, seriously, what?
I think sometimes the crowd even helps it though, because to just like get involved as well, have like a laugh with you.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm very appreciative of the repro crowd.
Awesome. So one show we've obviously not talked about is the recent one, obviously the Trios Grand Prix. I mean, talk a little bit about this. Obviously, I know he's talked about it a little bit, but talk about the show overall.
Wow. So day one was incredible. That's what I thought was going to be the hardest for me, because working with a couple of teams or wrestlers I've not worked with before. So there was that pressure of remembering everything and yeah, and it being a different format. I've never done a trios tournament before. This was the first annual tournament the RevPro has done. So it was like, okay, then finding how that works. And then it was like, oh, then you've got to do the coin toss thing. And yeah, but it was lots of fun. Day one, my favorite of day one was actually not a tournament match. It was Will Caven versus Leon Cage, because it was Leon Cage's debut. I think he absolutely smashed it. There were a few bumps along the way, but for a 17-year-old boy, and I think, I don't want to say for definite, but I feel like at New Wave, like last year or the year before, I announced his first match that he read. So to see him now come to Rev Pro in that short amount of time was just so great to watch. And then on day two, he came out with Shane Hooker as well, and I've known Shane for a while. Great to see him on Rev Pro as well, because that's what turned out. So I thought day one was going to be my difficult day until I turn up on day two to find out we've got a Revolution Gauntlet tag match with like 8 teams in it. And I'm like, oh, because a trios tournament is not enough, Andy. Thank you for this. But thankfully, I knew pretty much everybody from the day before. And yeah, and then the final 2 incredible trios teams, and then CPF, which, to be honest, throughout the whole tournament, as far as the entrance concerned, I was really happy with doing their entrance, because it kind of worked, because all venues are different. So when you announce people, like, I tend to have the style of announcing people as they're getting into the ring, because that's how see, I never used to. Years ago, it would be when they came out the curtain, or as they're walking down to the ring. But it's Will Ospreay's fault, basically. So when I first started to work with Will 3 years ago, he was like, you don't start announcing me until I get in the ring. And then a couple of other people kind of wanted the same vibe, and I was like, well, you know what? This is now the Rev Pro style. They do it in New Japan. This is how we're going to do it here. That's how that kind of developed. And yeah, different venues have different lengths of where the entrance is, but with CPF this weekend, pretty much every time it was just on the beat, and by the time they got in, and then they got like close personal friends, CPF, and they were there ready, and I'm like, this is so good. So I was very proud of that multiple times this weekend, but my goodness, well deserved. As the first ever trios tournament, Grand Prix tournament winners, yeah, absolute fabulous trio. Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens next for them.
Absolutely. So with everything obviously you've done in your career and stuff like that, when you look back, what's like 3 moments where you can go, I'm proud of those moments? If you could pick 3.
Okay, well, one that I mentioned earlier, definitely Zack Sabre Jr. moment in the cover box. Announcing Will Ospreay's last show on the Indies. That was back at, I think it was High Stakes earlier this year, against Michael Oku for the Undisputed British Heavyweight Championship. Because I did it, and I don't often like watching myself like back on things, because if I am my worst critic, so it's like if I know I've done something wrong, I don't want to watch myself doing something wrong because I already know I've done something wrong. But when I do it and I nail it, and I'm like, oh, and I did, and I nailed that. But what was crazy, and unbeknownst to me, I had absolutely no idea that Tony Khan was there in the venue watching. Oh. Like, he was behind me. Didn't have a clue. Didn't have like, it was only halfway through that main event that when people were chanting and they were all looking behind me, and I'm like, what they're looking at? The match is over. Oh my goodness, that's Tony Khan. So yeah, that. But just announcing that in itself was a moment for me. But then to know that TK was there too, and then I got to meet him downstairs as well, which was incredible. And then third, I think the third would be when I got to announce for AEW Dark the Pac versus Shota Umino in Sheffield, and then to be on AEW Dark. At that point I was like, I've peaked. There's nowhere else to go from here, and that was 3 years ago. So yeah,
crazy, right?
They're probably that was 3, wasn't it?
That was, yes.
Fabulous. There you go.
Yeah, so I mean, you've done so much in your career so far. Do you know what I mean? I mean, what's next for you? I mean, you've done pretty much everything I can think of.
Yeah. I honestly, I don't know. I welcome the opportunities. Going back out to Italy next year. And yeah, just seeing what happens. Hopefully Rev Pro will continue and as they are, and go on to strengthen, and it'd be exciting to see what can happen there too.
Absolutely. So let's help you out, stuff like that, because obviously Rev Pro's got some rest of the shows the rest of the year. So in the 1st of December, London 91, of course, London, that's obviously a good venue. Southampton 33, back in Sheffield on the 15th of December. And of course, upcoming Uprising with a match that's really got me interested, which is this.
Oh, yeah. Round 2, but who's gonna come out on top? Will it be Luke? Will it be Michael? Will Michael retain? I don't know. It's so exciting.
I mean, Luke's obviously done an absolutely incredible job. I mean, I've seen him in the ring. I mean, he's an incredible talent, let's be honest.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I've watched Luke for the last 3 years, and going from, because when I first met Luke, it was very much Luke and Ethan in the tag league as the young guns, and then unfortunately Ethan picked up his injury. Luke transitioning into the singles, and to now see him at the top of the company, not only at the top of the company, at the top of the country. It's well deserved, and he's still young. So much more to come from Luke Jacobs. Definitely so much more to come from Luke Jacobs.
Absolutely. And of course, let's not rule out Michael Oku. Do you know what I mean? It's phenomenal talent as well.
Oh, 100%. Like, I find it crazy that I still see Michael and Amira on a weekly basis, because they should be worldwide. Which there are times that they get to go around the world, but I'm like, on a selfish level, I love that I see them all the time, but also at the same time, I'm like, you deserve so much, you know? But yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna be, will it be a 5-star match? Will it be a 6-star match? I don't know. Let's see what happens.
Let's see
It's
what
got all
Dave
the
Meltzer says,
ingredients.
right?
Hmm?
Let's see what Dave Meltzer says.
Well, exactly. But yeah, can't wait.
Of course. Now, obviously, before we came on the air, I've obviously got Mark Haskins coming on the show, so this is going to be interesting. Have you got a question for Mark you want me to put to him?
Oh, Mark Haskins. What are your thoughts on the Legion being no more? Would you be prepared to bring the Legion back?
Okay, so I will put that question to our Mark Haskins, obviously on Monday when he's on the show, and I will tag you in on Twitter so you can see his response.
Marvelous.
Yeah, Fran, it's been an absolute blast. Obviously, hope you've enjoyed the chat.
Yeah, it's been a lovely chat. Like I said, I talk a lot, so I hope everybody else has enjoyed it too, because I just waffle on.
Dear. So before we all set off, is there anything you'd like to plug yourself?
No, just come to Rev Pro. If you're local, then there's Southwest shows going on. I've got one on Sunday in Stroud. But otherwise, follow me on Instagram, X,
Formerly known as Twitter.
yeah. I will be on. I am looking to move over to Blue Sky, so keep an eye out for that. But yeah, you can follow me on TikTok doing weird things. I've not done too much lately, but a friend and a fan told me that I have I think it is like the most eclectic TikTok, because like most TikTokers, it's kind of one thing or the other. No, I'm just like doing this, doing that, randomly doing this, doing this. I'm doing my family tree at the moment. It's very interesting. I've just not quite got it onto TikTok, but doing a DNA test as well. It's quite fun. It's very fascinating.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah,
Let's be
sorry.
honest.
Well, yeah. So that's that. I've found my way into doing my family tree, and then we're doing the DNA, and I've got family mysteries as well. There's several family mysteries that I plan to solve. So I am documenting that. And yeah, follow me on TikTok if you want to know what my ancestors were up to.
I think you want to know yourself, never mind everybody else.
Oh dear. Right. Well.
Cheers for watching, guys.